hoping that everywhere we go, we can kind of connect with basically people in the overlanding world and the 4x4 world. And I'm hoping that I can have people basically, I'd like to never be solo as little as possible. Like just from when I used to do, go 4x4ing and stuff, like you get stuck so easily.
Yeah.
So I'd love to always be with people, but I want to link up with locals and be like, hey, take us to that one beautiful camping spot to with that crazy view, like take us to that beautiful spot and try to see just like the nooks and crannies of this country that you don't see from an RV, you don't see from a schoolie or.
Warning. The 4x4 Canada podcast contains discussion about exploring mountains, camping beside lakes, and enjoying the outdoors. Guests also talk about jumping race trucks side by side, racing 1,000 horsepower rigs across mud pits, and jumping monster trucks over stacks of buses. None of this is for the faint of heart. The 4x4 Canada podcast is not responsible for bringing out your inner adrenaline junkie or making you want to get out there and explore the back roads from coast to coast. The 4x4 Canada podcast is not responsible for broken parts due to jumping your vehicle, hitting mud poles too hard, crossing deep streams, and doing other dumb shit. However, we will take credit for inspiring you to explore mountaintops, spend quality time outdoors with your friends, or meeting new like-minded people, and most importantly of all, following your dreams.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for calling. Sorry, thank you for calling. Oh my gosh. This again. Lucky we can edit this out. Okay.
Nope.
No, we should do that. It's funny. Oh boy. Okay. So hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today on the 4x4 Canada podcast. I'm your host, Trisha.
I'm your host, Wes.
And today we have a special guest. His name is Matt from Overland Actual. Thanks, Matt, for joining us.
Thanks for having me, guys. Thanks for making some time.
It's going to be exciting. We've already been laughing way too much already, so I'm sure it's only going to get better.
Yes. Okay, so let's start with your socials. Where can people find you or follow you on your socials, Matt?
Overland Actual, spelled like that, one word. Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. I think there's an underscore at the end because somebody already had it. And Facebook, same thing. Overland Actual.
All right, thank you.
So you're everywhere.
Yeah, basically, we just said, well, if we're going to go one... Oh, and Threads, the new Threads, of course, we're on there. Overland, I think maybe even Twitter. Now, do I use all of them equally? No, I have a favorite child, and that's Instagram. YouTube, and then TikTok, and then Threads and Facebook are competing for that fourth spot.
All right, so find them everywhere.
Yes.
Okay. So we can go back and get some a little bit of a background. So Matt and I met through social media. And we chatted for a little bit, and he told me that he was planning a 2-year overlanding trip from Alaska to Argentina. But that's not just it. This is their first time ever, am I correct, overlanding camping trip, right?
Yes.
Yes.
First time ever as a complete family of 4. We had a 2-day trip like 3 years ago when Wilder was 2, and I think it ended up horribly. And then we're like, wow, we should not try that again. And now here we are.
So how long ago was that? Did you have a bit of a break in there, or did you decide, the week after the trip, hey, let's go do a big trip?
Oh, no, that was that was the summer of 2021. And shortly after that, we moved to Mexico for 2 years. I didn't even know what overlanding was until March of this year. I had no idea what anything overlanding. I'd never even heard the word overlanding, but we were in Mexico. We had our son there, and then it was I was actually playing around with ChatGPT for the first time. I tried to figure out who DB Cooper was, if it could tell me, and it didn't. And then I just started playing around with it, and then some way, somehow, I ended up just looking at my wife, which was the same thing that I did when I looked at Aaliyah in 2021, where I was like, hey, you want to move to Mexico? And then 3 weeks later, we're on a plane to a place we had never been. But I was like, hey, you want to get a Jeep and like a rooftop tent and just take the boys and go camping for like from Canada to Mexico, maybe? And she's like, yeah, it sounds like a good idea. Let's do it. And then it kind of evolved from there. Wow. Our lease was ending in Mexico in June. So we were we're at a point where like, okay, what do we do now? Like, what's the next
Mm.
plan? What we stay here? We try something else, and that's kind of how we're like, well, let's keep adventuring and seeing more of the world, because that's kind of what Mexico did for us. It kind of opened our eyes to adventure and just seeing new things, because we had never really left Canada before that. So that's
So
kind of how the initial was born.
where were you in Mexico?
We were just outside of Playa del Carmen, so just down the road from Cancun.
Okay.
Yeah,
And you're
we
there
had,
for 2 years. So what did you do for those 2 years?
worked on my tan, did a lot of that, but a lot of it was honestly just trying to see what would work. I went down there with a plan. Well, actually, we didn't really go down there with much of a plan. It was, like I said, it was a 3-week decision. I was like, hey, you want to move to Mexico one night? And she's like, yeah, let's do it. And then the next day we started throwing everything on Facebook Marketplace. And then when we left 3 weeks later on November 21st, we had the house ready for selling, listed on the market the next day. Our realtor did. And first plan when we got down there fell through, and then started a business that failed, tried something else that failed. And then we just kind of kept trying, seeing what would work and kind of doing that. But mainly just kind of enjoying life, not really knowing what day of the week it was. Watching our boys kind of, like, I watched Wilder. He went from never having swam in his life to like he's a fish now at 4 years old. He spent every day in the water. He learned how to bike ride. He got to see some cool stuff for a 4-year-old and make some pretty cool memories. So that was a big part of it, was just getting to spend time with them. And when Fox was born, I kind of looked at my wife and I was like, geez, Louise, like, you did all this with Wilder? She's like, yeah, you were at work. And I feel like I missed so much of it. She's like, well, welcome to it. And I was like, oh, Jesus, okay.
Here's a diaper.
So, yeah, well, it was less of like, how do you entertain a child that is just going crazy? Like, because I used to work 7 days a week at the dealership, so I was never home. And so it was eye-opening to be like, whoa, this is kind of nuts.
Yeah.
Go stay-at-home mom.
Of it all as well, too, right? So
100%. It's a mental battle for sure, especially against a 4-year-old and a newborn.
That's amazing. But you get to spend time with your family and, like you said, watch your kids like grow up and just be free. And that's like a different experience all in together. Like, that's amazing.
It was right in the middle of the pandemic, and Mexico, when we got down there and there was no pandemic. There was no, we never had any feeling of kind of that kind of stuff going on. And I mean, the nice thing is we had no idea what their politics were, because it didn't affect us. We didn't understand it anyways. So
yeah,
it was very mentally refreshing to leave such a doomy and gloomy time, mid 2021, and kind of just like step out of that into a place where none of that existed. So that was kind of not what made the sacrifice worth it, but it was one of the key reasons why we were like, this is the sacrifice we want to do. Yeah. Like when the pandemic started, my wife had thrown out, like Aaliyah threw out a bunch of it. She's like, do you want to live in an RV and just travel the world? Like, just quit your job now and let's just go travel the world. I'm like, come on, that's completely bananas. Nobody does that. And she's like, okay, well, let's buy an acreage somewhere and just have a hobby farm and just like, let's get away from all the craziness. Like, that's nuts. And now I'm just like, yeah, let's go. Like, I wish 3 years ago.
Does she have a single sister?
She might. I don't know. I can throw in a good word for you.
So Mexico, as you mentioned, quite a different country, and it's quite interesting. I've got some friends that live down in Baja, and I actually just saw them a couple of weeks ago at the Overland rally. But they were mentioning, it's like a 30% less expensive to live there. There's a lot of stuff is the same price, like sometimes the car parts are the same and stuff like that. But they said the medical system down there is great and they absolutely love it. Bill mentioned that he had to have a surgery up here and they went down again for their 6 months, whatever. When they got back, somebody phoned them and said, okay, we can book you now for a year. And he's like, that was like 3 months ago. I've already had my surgery done. Like, this is, so did you find that as well too about the medical system down there?
Would be a word for it. Everything we have insurance for down there is incredible. Like when it comes to dental, vision, medical, even for the vet, we have 3 teacup chihuahuas, and Moose, one of them had to have all of her teeth removed when we were in Canada. And it cost us about $1,300 for all of her teeth. In Mexico, it cost us for both of our other chihuahuas to have all their teeth removed. And then even for when Fox was born, the overall experience of having Fox in Mexico versus having Wilder here in Canada. Wilder was born at a very popular, big birthing hospital. And if I could go back, I would have Wilder in Mexico.
Wow.
The experience was amazing. Everything was fantastic. Aaliyah had a C-section here. And when we were here, it felt very like, not industrialized, but like, it felt like a business. Like we were customers at the business, and it was like, hey, let's get you through and out the door, and next one comes. And they even said like, hey, because you had a C-section here, you will never, like, your next one needs to be a C-section. And which sucked because I know what Aaliyah's, what her birth plan was. And so when we had Fox in Mexico, she had him naturally drug-free. He was bigger than Wilder, and everything, the doctors, even the ultras, it wasn't a tech that, can't tell you anything because they'll get sued. So we were getting all sorts of great information during the ultrasound. Hey, this sac means this, and there's fluid here, and it means that. I didn't know what any of it meant, but it sounded good. Cool, thank you. So that's great. He gave us the sex. He's like, hey, it's too early, but we can look at something, and if it's one way, it's 70% chance it's a girl. If it's the other way, 80% chance it's a boy or something. And we're like, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, it's a boy. Boom, he was right. We had our pediatrician. She was fantastic. Where we lived, it was crazy the amount of people that were pregnant and having kids in those 2 years of where in our little community, just our little community we lived. It was like baby after baby after baby. So and everybody was like, yeah, this is we came here to have our kid, and Mexico is super inviting. They're, you can be like, hey, I'm having a kid next month. They'll be like, yeah, come on, come have it here. Then they give you citizenship. They give your parents citizenship. They're super good. They don't want to separate family and stuff. So all in all, and the entire cost from every single one of our visits, everything put together was about like $2,300, which, in the States, you would have been looking at probably close to 60 grand. In Canada, who knows what you end up paying for tax-wise or whatever it is, but fantastic experience, medical system.
A great experience.
Sounds like. Let's go back to your chihuahuas. Did you say one of them is named Moose?
Yeah, Moose. She's the only one that's left with me right now. I think she's.
That's just that's a great name for a chihuahua, right?
Wow.
She's the one that I got to name her. The other two is Miss Kitty and Boo.
Wait, Miss Kitty and what's the other one?
Boo.
Boo?
Boo.
Yeah. So
there's Moose.
That's a girl. She has no teeth, so her jaw just kind of hangs. Not sure what's going on. Yeah, she's our little unit. She has no teeth, but she's just a big old girl.
So are they going to be traveling with you guys?
We're not 100% sure yet. That might be that's still a logistical thing. Moose she's really good. She asks to go outside when she has to go outside. She doesn't run off and stuff like that. Whereas Boo is our smallest one. She's like 1.5 pounds, and she doesn't try to run away, but she just puts her nose down, and then just all of a sudden she's gone. She's just smelling wherever she's going. So, and then Miss Kitty is getting a little old.
Yeah.
So hopefully they do come, because while they're super attached to Miss Kitty, like if she's at Aaliyah's mom's house for the night or something like that, he's just distraught. So hopefully we can figure it out and make.
Yeah.
I imagine it's a bit of logistical or border stuff with bringing animals across the borders, or so many borders, I should say.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's like to go to the U.S. To bring them into Mexico, it wasn't bad. You just have to have some documentation of like a health record, essentially. which they didn't even ask for. They just kind of looked them over and like, cool. And then in Canada is the same thing. They just wanted to see that you had a health check recently, and that's the same thing. Just off you go. But they're not bad on the plane because we each get one and shove it under our seat in the carrier. So they're pretty good for that.
Yeah, I imagine as long as you got all your papers and stuff like that, everybody should be good to go, right? So
Yeah.
Yeah, the hardest part has been trying to get Fox's papers. That's been our mission right now because he's straight up muchacho Mexican. So you got to get him his Canadian stuff. And for Mexicans, it's not like us. Like our Canadian passport, we can just go wherever we want, basically. But for them, they have to get a visa. They have to apply for a visa in order to be able to leave. And it's a bit more of a process.
So obviously the kids are going with you and going to be doing some homeschooling along the way. I assume that's probably how it'll work out.
Yeah. So the math in English for me is kind of a non-negotiable for Wilder. That's know your numbers, know your letters. And it's nice because as much as he doesn't want to do it, and I get it because he's my son and I didn't want anything to do with that when I was growing up, he's super into the maps and the compass and like stuff like that. So I'm like, listen, man, can you tell me what grid is G5 right now? And I'm like, no, you can't because you don't know your letters and your numbers. And he's like, okay, fine, just do my schoolwork. And I'm like, all right. And then I'm going to do something different for each province and each state that we're in to kind of focus on area that we're in. So I'm making him basically like books, like learning books for each state and province. So it'll be, state specific or province specific natural resources, nature. So what plants are native to it, what animals are native to it, what's its, history, when was it found, who found it, sports and stuff like that with some puzzles and stuff like that. And so that'll be kind of idea. I started kind of making all that in the hopes that I can make him his own kind of like YouTube series of him doing his schoolwork and learn. And I want to learn it too, because I would love to be able to look at a tree and be like, that's a fir and that's a pine and that's a, so on and so forth. So I'm excited to learn at the same time to be like, hey, this is a native tree to British Columbia. And then, so do his YouTube thing, but then at the same time, depending how it goes, then be able to make those books and then kind of publish them or sell them to other families individually who are like, hey, we're going to Saskatchewan for a super fun adventure next month, so we're going to get our kids these books instead of the tablet. They can learn where we are. We're going to Washington State, let's get the one for, you know what I mean? Just
that's really
trying
cool.
it out, seeing what happens.
I think it's a great idea to, the more, I'm probably the same as you are in regards to, if I'm interested in it, I'm going to put more work into learning about it in regards to whether it be math or reading or whatever, right? So and reading is critical. Reading is probably, especially at that young age, learning how to read at that young age is critical to the rest of their life, really, right? So
for sure,
because it's so hard to get through life with not being able to read very well. So that's hugely critical. And if you make it fun, it makes it more enjoyable for them.
It's a difficult one for me because, like I said, I hated school growing up. So when he's kind of sitting there, I'm like, all right, man, like let's finish your ABCs and, finding whatever. I'm like, if it's hard for me to make him do it because I'm like, dude, I get it. When I was your age, like you got your dirt bike sitting outside the door. Like, I know I would want to go ride it too instead of doing this matching game of letters or whatever we're doing. But then when he wants to play chess with me, I'm like, man, you got to learn your numbers and your letters if you want to play this game. Like there's so many, and I can't even think of it all, but there's so many times when he's trying to do something or whatever. I'm like, hey man, you know what would make that easier? If you knew how to count properly. That'll help a lot. Trust me. And I mean, if he decides like, hey, all of a sudden he loves science or he loves history or whatever, like, yeah, sure, I will feed that as much as you want. But your numbers and your letters and your reading and your mathematics has to be a non-negotiable for him and his brother.
Yeah. I know earlier you talked about a Jeep. So what type of rig do you drive? And my question obviously is going to go into modifications because you have to have some kind of gear to go onto this amazing trip. And like, what gear do you have or you're planning to outfit your rig to go on the trip?
So the toss up was obviously between a Jeep and a Toyota and what we're going to go with. But so in 2014, me and my wife both got Jeep Wranglers.
Okay.
So I wanted to go trade my truck in for another truck, and somehow she got a Wrangler, and I ended up getting a 2-door Sport manual without AC and a soft top.
Oh.
She got a nice Sahara with all the bells and whistles and the 4 doors. That's when I fell in love with like Jeeps and all that stuff. Like I brought it home and I found a sale on front and rear bumpers, and the bumpers were switched out right away. The tires and rims were gone. And then I started meeting Jeep people. I was like, man, this is like a whole thing.
Yeah.
They brought us on like little wheeling trips. So we went on like 3 or 4 wheeling trips, and my 2-door was kind of our toy. And I was like, this is fun. I like this. Like, this is great. I don't make the best decisions sometimes. I have a lot of stories from childhood to now, like even as an adult, of like, hey, you shouldn't have done that. That wasn't a good idea. You didn't think very hard before you did that, did you?
Okay, what did you do?
Thankfully I didn't do anything to it, but I definitely pushed it to some serious limits of like, oh, that was a close one. Like, that could have gone pretty bad.
Yeah,
it didn't. So
yeah.
And so that was like my thing. But on those decisions, I ended up getting myself this lovely tattoo. Yes, so it's upside down. So, and I didn't tell my wife I was getting my back worked on, and I was like, "Hey, you want to give me a Jeep grill?" And he's like, "Okay." And I was like, "Oh," and then my wife's like, "Why would you do that?" Like, I don't know. I thought it was cool. I like Jeeps forever. And so she's like, "Well, you can't get a Toyota. You're not getting a Toyota tattoo." And that's fair. So I ended up, we were going to get a Jeep Wrangler. That was the plan. And then I was talking with a trailer company in the States, little Overland trailers, and they were giving us a trailer for 6 months to use, and then we're going to switch it out for another one of their demo models when we got down there. So I was like, this is great. We got a trailer. It's got a bed on the inside. And then when I spoke with IceCo, IceCo has been super awesome. They were super on board with everything, but I've never like gotten free stuff like that. And and they're like, "Hey, well, what do you want?" And I was like, "Whoa, what do you mean, what?" So I go on the website and I'm looking. I'm like, "Oh man, 75-liter fridge. That sounds fantastic. There's 4 of us. We can fill it with tons of food. This is great." I'm like, "This fridge will be perfect."
Yeah.
And they're like, "Awesome. Can't wait for you to get it." I'm like, "Cool." And it's coming. And then I talked to my mechanic and he's like, "Dude, that doesn't fit in the Wrangler at all." So I was like, shoot. So I called the trailer company. I'm like, "Hey, what's the biggest size fridge you can fit in your trailer? Can I have a fridge sent to you guys?" And they're like, "Yeah, it's 45 liters. I'm like, "Wait, what?" "Yeah, it's like the biggest fridge or a slide will fit." And I was like, oh man, like now what am I doing? I don't want to call IceCo and be like, "Hey, I have no idea what I'm doing. I got super trigger happy and I got a 75-liter fridge that doesn't fit in anything." So I was like, "Oh, okay, well, I guess the fridge is depicting what vehicle we get."
Yeah.
So then we ended up going with the Gladiator, which I was super pumped on. I've had 3 Wranglers in the past, a Compass, a Grand Cherokee, and now I've had a Gladiator. So I'm making my way through their makes. But and then even that was like the Gladiator was a giant pain in the butt because I wanted a Sport with the max tow because you save a bunch of money on, the Rubicon is basically what you're paying for what I'm going to rip out anyways. And the max tow gives you 410 gears on a Sport. So I was like, yeah, this is great. But then trying to find that max tow on a Sport is a different story. So Canada, we get 10% of what the US gets in terms of inventory. So it's not the greatest right now in terms of what's available. So we ended up going with the Rubicon. which I was like, oh, God, like, I'm not going to complain about that. Like, it's not obviously the worst thing in the world. So I was like, whatever. Like, so the plan is going to be Rubicon Gladiator. We picked it up last week, I think. And so we're going to put kind of like a GFC style canopy wedge tent on it. The fridge is mapped out, is going to be in the front, and storage in the back. Wilder's going to sleep behind the fridge, essentially. He's going to have a little bed there, and then me, Aaliyah, and Fox will be up top, and then that'll give us the ability to, when we're not sleeping, we can just push up the floor, and then I can kind of use it as a mini office as well, and stuff like that. So I think all in all, I'm kind of happier with that, because I think that having the trailer would have been more cumbersome and limited potentially where we could go. So I think this will work. This should work, maybe, hopefully. But yeah, we'll find out.
Yeah.
And then
yeah,
I think it will probably work out well.
I think it'll work out well. I've seen people are doing that, a lot these days, like without the trailer pulling and just doing that rooftop tent. And
living in it for 2 years is going to be the question of, does this work? But I don't know. I'm super happy with it. Aaliyah's happy with it. Wilder loves it. Fox couldn't care less. He's one. So, but I think for now, just because it's the Rubicon, because it has 33s on there, and it has, a few other bells and whistles, we probably won't switch anything out of it just yet. I got the few things that are must-haves, and now we're trying to figure out getting that canopy and that wedge camper, because the lead time on most of those is kind of crazy. We have a rooftop tent that we can put on there, so we're kind of working on that right now. But we're leaving on our leave date is set for the 21st. So we have a few more things that we need to acquire and figure out and build out the back of that box itself. But I mean, realistically, we have everything that we need to do it on it, right? Like in our possession at this moment. And the rest is more or less just kind of extra comforts and stuff like that we'd want to get.
So you're leaving as of this month?
Yeah, I wanted to leave the last week of July. Like in my head, I was like, yeah, we get back. We should only need a month to get everything together and go. Not exactly the case. And I mean, it kind of fits in well with our entire thing, is that we don't really have a plan. It's more or less like we've routed out what the West Coast is going to look like in Alaska, and then coming back through Alberta. And then we're like, we'll figure it out from there. We'll route the next portion of it. And who knows, like, I don't know. We want to go to Alaska, and we want to do every province except for Nunavut, because you can't drive there, and then go down into the U.S. and do every state except for Hawaii, because you can't drive there, and do every state. So like our map of the U.S. is like, we're going to come in through Maine, and then all the way down to Florida, then back up to Michigan, over to Washington, and then dip down into California, back over towards the middle, down to Louisiana, kind of come back up Colorado, and then end the U.S. in Arizona, and then go into Mexico. So we want to try like that. And that has absolutely no reason or rhyme or necessity. It's just, I'm like, well, why not? We have 6 months in the U.S. We have all the time in the world in Canada, and we have all the time in the world in Mexico. Like, why not just try to do to sleep at least in every province, every state?
That's so crazy. I love it.
I love it too. I think it's a great. Yeah, if I could do it right now, I would go with you guys, because I love the idea and the concept of it. Hitting all of Canada, hitting all the U.S. I've been to quite a few provinces, I mean, quite a few states, but there's still so much more to explore there that I haven't been, right? So
so much.
Yeah, we're hoping that everywhere we go, we can kind of connect with basically people in the overlanding world and the 4x4 world. And I'm hoping that I can have people basically, I'd like to never be solo as little as possible. Like just from when I used to do, go 4x4ing and stuff, like you get stuck so easily.
Yeah.
So I'd love to always be with people, but I want to link up with locals and be like, hey, take us to that one beautiful camping spot to with that crazy view, like take us to that beautiful spot and try to see just like the nooks and crannies of this country that you don't see from an RV, you don't see from a schoolie or stuff like that, right? That's kind of why we wanted the 4x4, so that we can get to those hard to reach places while the boys are young and small enough that we can fit in a singular 4x4. And who doesn't want to watch, two super stubborn human beings living on top of each other and trying to do this ridiculous adventure for the first time ever? Like, there's bound to be some good moments.
So once again, everybody's got to check you out on Overland Actual on Instagram and YouTube to see these two stubborn adults with their kids doing every province and every state.
Yes.
Yeah, we get pretty typical when it comes to like how we act, and we're always, we're both always right, and that makes some conflicts.
Well, communication is key to any relationship, right? And to do something like this trip, I mean, communication goes both ways with with your wife, but also as well with the kids as well, right?
Yeah.
So by the end of this, you guys are going to be either really good communicators or you'll be divorced. One of the two.
And I've gotten both sides of that answer from friends. I've had friends that are like, man, that's going to be the greatest thing ever. And I've had friends that are like, I got a couch for you when that explodes. I'm like, oh, well, we'll find out. But we've been kind of living on top of each, like we went from a 4-bedroom house to Mexico in a 2-bedroom apartment condo, like a small living space. So we've done the downsize. We've lived on top of each other. And I think we used to fight more when we had more space, really, because now we don't have a choice. Like I don't want to sit around her when she's 4'10". Do you know how aggressively cranky she can be when she wants to be? Thankfully, she's not here right now, but so I tend to be the one that's like, okay, I was wrong. Can we, you can have the first bite.
Well, it sounds like you guys are sort of the same mentality when it comes to the whole trip thing and stuff like that, right? So that helps out as well too. And I think one of the biggest things that I've found over the years that working with both people doing some of the planning and stuff like that and having that communication about what is expected in this, say the next month or whatever, right? Or even the next week, if, somebody just wants to lay around for a couple days or any other person wants to power through or whatever, right? So just keeping those communication open and the expectations open for sure is going to be the key, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to pretend like I don't need any of the amenities, and which she's like, no, like we need to figure out things. So she's on the Overland app, and just like she's been walking around with her notepad for the last 2 weeks straight, and she's like, we're gonna do laundry here, and we can camp here, and we can do this here, and this is around this trip. I'm like, that's fine with me. You tell me where to go, I'll find, I'll be happy wherever we go. It's like when she wants to go eat somewhere, I'm like, find a restaurant, I'll find something on the menu I want to eat. She's the picky one, so I'm like, this is perfect.
I'll leave the whole comment about women not knowing what they want to eat for another day. I got 2 very important questions for you. What color is the Jeep?
So she wanted to go with the high velocity. And I was like, no shot. I'm going with this absolute magnet of a color. And her original Jeep was the Dune color. 2014, they had a Dune as their, and I was like, yeah, it's a great color. It's cool. But you can't do anything. Like, you can't flip somebody off in a Dune colored Jeep because they know exactly who you are. There's not enough of them going around. So I'm like, I don't want a flashy vehicle. So we ended up going, it's white, color match fender, color match roof. It's a white Gladiator. I like it. I've never had a white vehicle, so I'm pretty jazzed about it.
Okay. White Gladiator. Wow, Gladiator. That's pretty cool. And it's the matching white fenders and everything.
It's the one I wanted had the metal bumpers, but we couldn't get that one, so we went with this one. It's got the tan seats which I was super happy about. So it kind of like makes it look a little bit bigger on the inside because it doesn't have the black seats. I was like, yeah, I'll live with this. We get the plastic bumpers, so that's got to get fixed.
There's a friend of mine. He's on Instagram, and they're called him and Stephanie, or Clayton and Stephanie, and they're called Skyward Overland. And he's got he just picked up a Gladiator, a white Gladiator, and white cap and white color match fenders now, and it looks good. He's been doing little mods to it now, but they've also got a 4-door LU that's white as well too. But the white Gladiator just looks good. Like it's just it looks really good. And the only thing I find with white, because I've got a white Tacoma, sometimes it can be a little hard to photograph when it's sunny out because the light bounces off the white. Yeah, you'll get it figured out. It's just something that I've noticed, in the real sunny days, right? So,
and it gets dirty super quick. Like the day we brought it home, we live on dirt roads, and it was raining for like 2 days before that. By the time it was in the driveway, it was covered in mud, and like, this is terrible. Can't take a picture like this. Like, so it gets dirty quick. But yeah, I haven't tried taking pictures of it yet because I haven't been able to have it clean. But now I'm gonna have to try to work around the sunny shots.
Trisha, I know you've got a question you're dying to ask.
Yeah. What's your name of the Jeep?
So we haven't figured that out yet. We're working on it. My 2015 two-door was named Bazooka because I was a huge G.I. Joe fan as a kid, and he was my favorite G.I. Joe. So I had like a big reticle on the hood, and then Bazooka on the hood. And then Aaliyah's 2014 was LL Cool J because ladies love cool Jeeps. And so that was hers. But now with like everything we're doing, I'm like, I feel like we kind of have to like find a fun way to find a name for it, or maybe get people to help us figure out a name. So that is definitely on the map of we have to name it before we leave.
Yeah, I have to name it. Oh my god.
Get some help from the 4-year-old.
Yeah.
He'll want to name it Wilder, like he wanted to name his brother. It's like, name it Wilder. It's the best name there is. And like, of course it is, dude. But like, not how life works.
Well, you'll have to let us know what you end up deciding.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Trisha believes every vehicle should be named.
Yeah.
It's a good luck thing, isn't it? That's what it used to be with ships. If it would be bad luck if you didn't have a name for your ship and just went with the numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think anything with a motor that's driving you around, you build that like emotional connection with it. Which when I worked in car sales, I lost that emotional connection with vehicles, and now I feel like I got it back. So yeah, we got to find a name for it for sure. Maybe break a bottle over the back bumper or something.
So I had another. Oh, sorry, Wes. Sorry.
Nope, go ahead.
I had a question regarding. I know we were talking about communication, but being on the road for that long and probably being in some maybe remote places and terrain, what have you figured out, like communication devices, or like what are you going to be using to kind of navigate?
When it comes to communications, for me, I've always like, even the name Overland Actual is kind of a comms handle to a certain extent, military base, but I always thought it was a cool name, having Actual on the back of it. So that's why I went that route. But I know nothing and I know a lot about communications. So for instance, when we go hiking and stuff like that, when we're away from the rig, or if one person's by the rig, we'll be using GoTenna mesh system that I have. So that's basically just you throw up a huge antenna in one area and then use it as a relay with their little pods that you put in your pocket, and then you can text from your phone as long as they can reach the other relay. Two-way walkie-talkies, that's Wilder's absolute forte. He always has a walkie-talkie, batteries or not, and he's always having conversations on it. So he'll definitely have his hands on a few two-ways, and when he's playing, it's nice for him to kind of have that, because I know he can operate a walkie-talkie at this point, and he loves doing it. And then CB radio in the truck is going to be that's a must, just because there's no cooler feeling than driving down the highway in a small convoy of Jeeps and all having CB radios, and you just feel like the most badass people ever. And then I have a few ham radio options that I kind of like to play around with and use just to see if I can learn them, I guess, as I go. But I think and then of course Starlink. We got Starlink. That was the first thing. It went on sale when we were in Mexico, and I was like, yeah, we'll get that. We had it ordered here, and that's what we've had out here since we got here. So Starlink will be the big portion of it, and then we still have Mexican SIM cards in our phones. So that'll be some 5-2 numbers. Going to be. Yeah.
And do you still use like an old-fashioned map? Like, are you going to be using map and the map ways?
Oh yeah, this like I said, I'm solo. So Aaliyah took the kids. She went to her mom's house to do laundry and have a hot shower. And my night is with this guy, going through it and just going. I love it. I have a map for every province, every state, every country in North America. Well, the 3 of them. And yeah, I love. Since I was a kid, my dad taught me compasses and land navigation, stuff like that. So that's something I find I enjoy doing. Chances are we'll never have to use anything that I do in that atlas once, but I will be happy just putzing around and mapping things out in it.
That's half the fun, though, right? Is, I'll do the same thing,
For sure.
Just laying out, you're looking at ideas or looking at routes and different things like that, right? That's, that's just as much fun sometimes as actually being out there. So,
yeah, and it kind of like a big thing for me. Sorry, every time I move, the trailer moves the table. My camera is a little shaky. Redundancies for me is a big deal. So again, having 4 or 5 different communication options and having our paper maps and having multiple first aid kits and first aid kits that are overly packed is kind of my thing. I'm not worried about myself. I'm worried about the 2 super young kids and my wife. So the food situation, I never want to have less than 2 weeks worth of food. Once we're below that 2-week threshold, we got to resupply on our food. Water, same thing. And methods to clean our water, filter our water, stuff like that. And then again, maps and stuff like that. I know there's so many different possibilities for disaster in this adventure, so I want to make sure that everything is not preventable, but everything is done on my part, and I'm not like, shit, I wish I would have done this, or I wish I would have had this ready, and rather have it ready to go than wish I had it.
Speaking of water, what are you guys doing for water storage? Yeah, definitely.
So right now, our water storage is just going to be like the water jerry cans. I'm not really sure what the word for them would be, but water jerry cans. And then we have a few different filter systems. We have our Grail water bottles. We have our Life straws, and then trying to get a actual. It's kind of like the Guzzle H2O system in the small Pelican case. Similar system, but just a water filtration system that way. And then the plan is to replace our rear bumper with a tire carrier and then get a auxiliary water tank where the spare tire is and try to maximize that route. And then I want to try to find as many close to bodies of water places that we can make our way to, and if need be able to filter some water out.
You're heading out in like 2 weeks kind of idea. So obviously you're going to be traveling through a whole bunch of, you're going to be hitting winter in Canada or, northern, you know where I'm going with this.
Yeah. So that was partially why we wanted to leave in the last week of July. There's a family from Washington right now. I think they're in Alaska at this point, but they left Washington around the last week of July, and then they were heading up to Alaska. I was like, perfect. Like we can link up with them in Fort St. John, something like that, somewhere in northern BC when we're coming from Yellowknife, and then just follow them into Alaska. We'll be with Americans, so that hopefully will help us out a little bit, and a family of 4 who's been doing this for a long time. Like who better to do this with than a family of 4 with 2 young boys? Like that's who I want to pick their brain on everything.
Spend your first little bit Spend your first little bit with them, and
But that didn't work out. That's just how life goes.
Yep.
And so, in terms of the winterness, for me, I'm like, let's just bring some big blankets, I guess. But unfortunately, what that might end up doing is just shortening the amount of time that we spend up there. So in that northern area. So when we come down into BC, shouldn't be too bad. The plan was if we left in July, I wanted to be in New Brunswick. So New Brunswick's our last stop. That's where my mom is. And be in New Brunswick for Halloween. Do Halloween with the boys there. Quick resupply at mom's house and kind of gather everything, put everything, see how everything looks, and then enter the U.S. through Maine from New Brunswick. And so it's a tough one because right now what we're going to do is we're going to leave here, we're going to go up to Yellowknife, and then from Yellowknife we're going to come down, dip into BC, and then go to Whitehorse. From Whitehorse we're going to go to Anchorage and then do that kind of loop to Fairbanks, and then come back out and head down to Vancouver Island through like the Whistler route, if that makes sense. Do the island from top to bottom, and then come in through Kamloops, go up to Banff, and then come into Calgary. And that's kind of where we're not 100% sure what that's going to look like from Calgary to Ontario. I spent a lot of time in Ontario, so I have a lot of hellos to do and stuff like that, people that I haven't seen in a real long time. But we're just not sure, are we going to spend a night in Saskatchewan and then spend a night in Manitoba, or can we, we're trying to find either people from there that are like, hey, we got a super cool spot for you to check out and camp at for a couple of days. If not, we'll kind of find a few places to camp out, just so we've camped out there and we can kind of check it off the list. And then we're going to move to Ontario. We're going to spend a bit of time there, just kind of making our way slowly through there. And then Quebec is where my side of the family is. So we're going to go up to Chicoutimi area, visit some of my family there, and then cross into Newfoundland, ferry over to Newfoundland at the northern tip there, and then come down, ferry over to Nova Scotia, do Nova Scotia, then make our way to PEI, and then New Brunswick. So Canada's kind of mapped out, but it's not like we haven't put pins on anywhere that we're staying for the whole way, but hopefully, yeah. Aaliyah's kind of like, well, worst case scenarios, we just head south of the U.S. right away. And I'm like, well, that kind of defeats the purpose. I want to do that. So we'll see. And I mean, with 2 kids, we can have the best plan in the world, and those 2 little mutants are just going to destroy it all in a day. So
not set in stone.
Yep.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. That's kind of what I was thinking, camping in the cold or camping in the winter is not bad adult wise, but it can definitely be different with kids. That's for sure. And kids that young, right? So I guess you have to sort of play it by ear, and what happens, right? So
I'm hoping they're kind of like alligators, where they kind of get cold and they just slow down a bit, and then I can just kind of keep up with them a little bit easier. It just brings them down a notch or 2, and I'm like, all right, now I can catch up to you, buddy. But yeah, that's kind of what, and especially if it takes a minute to get our canopy camper and we're sleeping in a rooftop tent, I mean, that's going to be a whole different ball game. But at the same time, we can't really do long trips because Fox is an absolute jerk when it comes to in the car. That's gonna not a concern, but it's like, holy, every every time we go for a drive, I'm like, oh, this is gonna be strange because yeah, or just Leah's like, well, I guess we'll throw some headphones in because I mean he's not a he's not hurt. He's just he's staring at the back. He's backwards facing, so he's staring at the headrest, and you know, so yeah, he when he falls asleep, it's great. Cute as a button when he's sleeping, but just an animal when he's awake. So, and I mean he just turned 1. He just turned 1, and he apparently his teeth are coming in a lot quicker than they should, all at once. So he's got a bunch of teeth just busting through, and he's always hungry, and so he's our little ham show. But I mean, that's part of why we're doing it, right? We want to hopefully inspire other families and stuff like that maybe want to do adventures and stuff, and they're like, oh, we have kids, we can't do it, and because that's what a lot of we get, like, oh, we wish we could do this, but the kids and the kids. I'm like, well, that doesn't mean you got to end doing it. So we'll do it, and we'll see if you should or shouldn't do it with the kids, if they make you go crazy or not.
There's a lot of families that are traveling, and I've talked to quite a few of them, and yeah, you just make it work and figure out how to work, and every kid's different, and you just figure out how to go, and it's not as uncommon, or you hear about it more often than you used to. I think it was done a lot in the past, but you definitely hear a lot more about it with social media these days. So yeah, you guys will figure it out, and it'll just happen.
Yeah,
that's it. It's I mean, it's I always try to think of things, the people say don't think of the worst case scenario, but I feel like if you look at the worst case scenario and you understand what it is, and you look at the best case scenario and you understand what it is, if you understand the two, you're going to naturally progressively work towards the best case scenario. And as you focus on the best case scenario, you're going to further yourself from that worst case and as you go. So that's like, you know what, the absolute worst case scenario that could possibly happen to us, barring any accident, is this is a complete failure and we run out of money for whatever reason, and I just go back to selling cars. And then we start over. We regroup and figure out because since doing our Mexico, sell everything and just get on a plane 3 weeks later and move to a country we've never been to, we are addicted to adventure. And I don't think we'll ever be able to settle anywhere and just do the house and the 9-to-5 job and kind of thing. And I think we're always going to need this kind of madness to a certain extent, like just so worst case scenario, we come back, we regroup, and we figure out what the next step is, and we go from there. It's just, but best case scenario, it ends up being an epic adventure.
That's awesome. I love that. I love it. Love it.
And I mean, just so far, like I said, we discovered overlanding in March, and I mean the connections that we've made through social media have been incredible. We've got some super cool partnerships already that to me seems crazy, because I'm like, I don't have any historical proof that what we're doing is going to work, but we've had companies that are like, yeah, no, we're in on it, like let's rock and roll, and we're super super grateful for those companies to jump in with us and support us on this crazy adventure.
Yeah,
no doubt. Did you want to, you mentioned IceCo earlier. Did you want to mention any other companies that are supporting you guys or helping you guys with this? Yep.
Yeah, well, so we have IceCo. They sent us the fridge, which is one of our biggest. It was one of my biggest things, because food is so important. They sent us that dual fridge, so we got a freezer, we got a fridge, and you can fit 36 water or wine bottles in there, which I thought was just completely insane. And then my medic sent us a huge first aid kit, which again, I was a firefighter years ago, and first aid is a massive one for me. So we're super thankful for my medic. Vibram 5-finger shoes they sent us our footwear for the adventure, and I'm super jazzed on that, because I was like, I need a camp shoe. What can I have that's like a good camp shoe that I can drive with, that I can get wet? And I was like, there's no way. And so I reached out to them, and they're like, yeah, we're super into this. Like we're in, and they sent us our footwear. Wilder got he calls them his ninja shoes because they look like ninja shoes. So he's super pumped on them.
Yeah.
So by
Those are the ones with individual toes and all that, right?
yes, it's like your foot is getting a hug the whole time. It's amazing. There's like very little tread on the bottom. So it's like you feel like you're grounding all the time, and I love them. I love them.
I never thought about them for camp shoes and for kayaking and stuff like that. I got to think some more about that now. That's actually interesting. I never
kayaking because I guess they're like you can get them in water and walk around,
like
right?
the pair that I have, super thin. They're slip-ons, and so there's no laces, nothing, and they hug my weird shaped feet perfectly, and they're great because the sole's so small, you're not like getting a lot of debris and stuff on it. So to go in and out isn't the worst thing. And I've been wearing them to the store, and I've been wearing them everywhere. Like they're fantastic. And then a super, super awesome one that is a huge deal for us. As you've seen, I've been drinking coffee at 7 o'clock at night because I love my caffeine. Pour 4x4 Coffee Company has come on board, and they will be fueling our trip with some caffeine, which I'm super excited about. They're a small company that just started up in Texas, veteran owned, which is a big deal for us as well. And yeah, that was one of those like weird non-negotiables as well for us, was the caffeine supply, because both of us trying to keep up with those boys, we definitely would mainline IV coffee if we could.
The name.
So Pour
the
4x4.
name of that one again was Pour 4x4. Okay.
Pour.
Cool.
Pour pouring. Pour 4x4 Coffee Company out of Texas. So super happy there, and then we got a few others that we're talking to, but for now those are the ones that have come to the party, and they are supporting our adventure and want to see what we'll do. So, and I mean I feel like I kind of see the magnitude of the trip to a certain extent when I take a step back and I see kind of like, a pretty big adventure. And what we're trying to do is that we figure, hey, we'll be able to take a brand new picture, a brand new video of a brand new location every single day for the next 730 days. So I was like, well, I feel like there's probably something there that we can offer content wise. And again, we've never done any of this. We've never done camping. We've never done content creation. We've never done photo editing, video editing. We're learning it all as we go, and it's been fun. It's been super stressful and finicky, but it's been a blast. So we're enjoying trying to learn I made a video with Wilder and his dirt bike with the Iceco fridge, and I was like, oh, that's not bad. I'm pretty proud of that one. So it's been a ton of fun trying to talk to the camera and kind of get out there and
just dive right in, eh?
Dive in, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm super good at self-deprecation to a certain extent. Like I'm usually pretty quick to make fun of myself. So I feel like that's a good fit for the camera, because I don't mind looking a little silly sometimes. And I think that helps me get through that shy part.
Well, yeah, if you can laugh at yourself, I do that all the time.
Right? It's the only way to go. My wife's Aaliyah's having a bit of a harder time. She's like, feel shy, or I'm like, screw it. What's the worst that'll happen? But like a few thousand people see what you're doing and laugh at you. I mean, life goes on, and we keep going on our adventure. If anybody wants to give us some tips or some tricks, or if anybody's got some good spots to go, then definitely hit us up. I don't know if it's like a universal thing, but I know when we were in, when we had our 2015 Jeep, we would go to like coffee meets at Tim's on Thursday nights, but there seemed to be a coffee meet every single night. So I'm hoping that we can find these little gatherings of 4x4 people, because I feel like that's where we'll meet some new friends and find some cool spots to go and some cool little places to go. But again, we've been out of the 4x4 world for so long. I don't even know if has overlanding and 4x4 completely meshed, or is there still just specific 4x4s and then or does everybody have a rooftop tent now? And it's like we're going to go together.
It's a mixture. I find that a lot of the local ones here in Kamloops, it's, guys are, show up and they're running 40s on a V8 powered truck, and then there's guys showing up in a Tacoma or a Jeep with a rooftop tent. So it's just, I find here anyways, it's more of a off-road or just a get together where everybody, looks at each other's vehicles and stuff like that, right? In Toronto, I know that Trisha, she's part of the GTA Jeep Girls, and they have their female-only events, meetups and stuff like that. But I imagine it's probably the same everywhere, where sometimes it might be a Overland, shout out. We had one in Vernon a while ago where it's just Overlanders, but most times I think it's probably a mixture of things, right? So
Yeah, and I find like here in Ontario, a lot of more 4x4 clubs, and now that I see there's a lot, we have a lot here still, but more people are getting into the overlanding. A lot of people have campers on their, Forerunners, Toyotas, the Gladiators, the Jeeps, like the Wranglers. Everyone is getting into the rooftop tents and just camping out and trailing and off-roading with the rooftops. And a lot of friends that I have are all getting rooftop tents now. So I think it's definitely growing, especially here. And I think in Canada in general, maybe just like everything that we're seeing from the States and just all the products and things that we're seeing on like social media and like people having, and I think it's just growing, and it's growing really fast. Mm-hmm.
I love it. I find like such a, oh geez, can't talk. It's such a great, it's such an awesome community so far from what we've gotten to see. Like everybody's so nice. Everybody, it's very, it seems like there's very few communities now that are unindustrialized, if that makes sense. Like it seems like all the companies in the overlanding world, and to a certain extent 4x4 world, are smaller companies, mom and pop kind of companies, and people that are like, hey, I like doing this. I'm going to create these, boxes that, it solves my issue. And it seems like there's a lot of those smaller companies. So it's not super, it doesn't seem like politics and all that kind of stuff has like seeped itself into the overlanding world, which again, that's what I want. There's so much outside noise going on in everything else you watch on TV and, so much in social media and stuff. It's nice to be a part of a kind of a closer community where none of that noise matters. It's just, hey, you want to go camping and have a fire and, go get your truck stuck and muddy and see if you can get over this obstacle. Yeah, let's do it. Okay, cool. Like it's so simple. You know what I mean? Like nobody cares. It's nobody, I don't think anyways that anybody cares what you're running, or like, I don't know if 35s are still the standard. It seems like everybody's running 37s and 40s, but like, that's just crazy to me. But again, it's just like, hey, can you want to come try to do this, or you just drive around if you can't, kind of like, I don't know. I'm super pumped about just the community of and getting back into that nice simplicity of, we all just enjoy getting out into nature and
Yep, 100%. Yeah.
I agree definitely with you. As with any sport or anything that you volunteer or whatever, there's going to be dicks here and there, but I mean, majority of the people are pretty good. So, and while we rub each other about what vehicle you're driving, and that's just, it's all meant in fun usually, right? So, but yeah, it's just I think it is a good community overall, and I think people can check you out, Matt, at Overland Actual on Instagram. I think that's going to be your best thing with you guys, and YouTube, of course, right? And keeping on posting those updates on your Instagram and letting people know, hey, in the next week we're going to be in this area, and go from there. I think that's going to be the best bet for you.
Yeah, that's the plan. It's our Instagram started off because we were in Mexico and we had zero ability to create any content. Our Instagram I started it just finding pictures I thought were cool of nature and stuff that I liked and just posting it and just starting to create our brand essentially that way. As there's it's a funny story. There's a guy who from two different accounts, and I was like a week into this. Again, I had never done overlanding. I chose a name that was similar to another big overlanding account, family account. And I had no idea. When I chose the name, I didn't know who these people were. So all of a sudden I post, I was trying to post 5 posts a day. Good morning, a good night post, and then 3 in between. And I get these 2 different people at the exact same time who leave these like kind of nasty comments on 2 of my pictures. And like, oh, you're just copycatting and you're trying to steal other people's work and you're a keyboard overlander. And I'm like, what is going on? Like, what are all these things? Who am I stealing information from? And then I was like, man, like I have no idea what's going on. And he's like, yeah, you're getting success from other people's hard work. Like you don't even overland. You're just gonna do it from a keyboard. Like I hate your accounts like these. And I'm like, man, I'm trying to overland. Like that's the plan. I'm gonna do I'm doing a trip. And then yeah, the account that I had supposedly had a similar name, they blocked us and they made like a Patreon post of this copycat account. And I was like, man, like I didn't know who you guys were. I just had your name and my name were flipped backwards basically. And as soon as this guy made the post, I was like, hey, like I made a story. I was like, hey, I don't know who these people are.
Yeah.
No ill will, but can I like pick your guys' brain because you guys are a family of 4 doing this? Like, I'd love to ask you some questions and follow you. And I was like, I'm trying to change my name. Instagram only lets you change your name. Like, it's got a weird every 7 days or something like that. Like, I was like, I can't even change it right now. I want to change it and I can't do it. And then sure enough, the same guy so then I went and I did some digging and both comments were from the same person on different accounts. And then he subscribed to my YouTube channel. And I was like, this is great. When I launched my YouTube channel, like months later, I see the name on the notification. I'm like, hey, I know that name. Could it be? And sure enough, I was like, sweet, man. Thanks for following. I hope I can prove. And I messaged him. I was like, man, I hope I can prove to not be a keyboard overlander. And like, there's a weird feeling inside of me that now needs your approval because you like put me on blast. Like, I need your approval, please. So that was my first introduction to the potential drama of the overlanding world. But other than that, it's been a fantastic reception, and we made tons of friends already all over North America. Some in Brazil already. They're like, yeah, when you come down, come through this way. I'm like, yeah, let's do that. I'm gonna have to look you up a little bit more just to make sure that it's safe. But okay, yeah, it's been a good time so far.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting world. The overlanding world. Well, I do have to say that I'm very jealous of your trip. It's something that I'm thinking about ever since Trisha mentioned what you're doing. And I'm like, okay. And then now you're mentioning every state and every province. And now I get all kinds of ideas running through my head. So,
What? Wow.
Yeah. Well, once again, everybody can reach you guys on Overland Actual on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and whatever else is out there. All of them. Exactly. Do you want to ask the last question, Trisha?
Yes. So the last question we always ask it for Canada Pod.
2 really good friends of ours, probably the 2 most amazing people that we have ever met. We met them in Mexico, but I actually followed him on Instagram from a year and a half prior to that. And we ended up living in the same community and having very similar views and became really good friends. Mitch and Jen J, and they have just bought their first Jeep Wrangler. And about a week into buying their Jeep Wrangler, they are heading into the U.S. to Yellowstone to go do a 2-week adventure. But they're both big in the hiking world, and I think they would have a pretty pretty cool story, and it'd be fun to hear what they think of their new Jeep world life. So we'll be linking up with them when we come back through Alberta. But yeah, I'd love to. They've never been on a podcast. They both have two pretty big followings, and I think it's time we get them on a podcast.
I think so. I agree. That's something, and especially, I mean, a lot of us are hikers and stuff like that as well, too, right? So it's,
Yeah, they wear helmets when they go hiking. They're those kind of hikers where it's like the consequences are bad. And I'm like, yeah, I'll watch you guys do it. It's not my jam. But
beautiful. Well, yeah, we'll definitely look them up for sure, and would love to have them on. I really want to thank you for coming on tonight. It's been an interesting conversation. It's always good laughs and that. So look forward to hearing about you guys' trip. And when you guys do come through Camels, give me a shout, and we'll see if we can, get some 4x4 people together for you, or at least show you a good area to go and somewhere to camp. And yeah, so when you're way back through, and well, Trish, she lives in the Toronto area, so there's nowhere good to camp there, but she knows lots. Well, there is on some of the side streets, I guess, but the park bench and yeah, exactly. But she does know lots of good wheeling areas and that in Ontario as well too. So
lots of some Overland events probably coming if you come this way. Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, we definitely have to keep in touch. We definitely have to get some video and have you on again and wherever you are. Yeah.
You betcha. Sounds good. Awesome. Really appreciate you coming on board tonight, and we'll keep in touch on the Instagram and the YouTube and follow your guys' adventures. I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens and go from there.
Thank you.